Que hubo, everyone? This is Nuestra Palabra. Latino writers have their say. I am your guest host, Rodrigo Bravo Jr., filling in for Tony Diaz, el libro traficante, and author of the book, The Tip of the Pyramid, Cultivating Community Cultural Capital. And even though Tony may not be here, ya sabes que le damos esquina al libro traficante and continue talking about cultivating cultural community capital. Food, friendship, family. The self-proclaimed Taco Mafia explores the challenges of surviving in a post-pandemic world amongst issues of gentrification, immigration, and sustainability. From our friends at Austin PBS to taco lovers like you, catch the Taco Mafia every Thursday for new episodes on Austin PBS or online via the Austin PBS app. However, right now we have them in studio right now. It's such a pleasure to have them here with us. We have members of the Taco Mafia here, as well as the producers who are here. With us, we have Joe Rocha and Alex Wolf of Austin PBS, Edgar Rico of Nixta Taqueria, and Jose Velasco and Anthony Prado of Discada. Really happy to have you here, guys. How y'all doing today?
Doing good. We're doing good.
Pretty good. Thank you
for having us.
Great. Well, I really appreciate y'all coming on here to the show. And before we get started, though, I want to go ahead and just thank all of our listeners. You might be listening to us first via our live stream, where we broadcast to all of our social media platforms like YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. I apologize. X, formerly known as Twitter. This video will also appear on Fox26Houston.com. We appreciate our allies over there promoting our work. However, you may still be listening to this on the audio version of our first platform, 90.1 KPFT, broadcasting over 100,000 watts in the Houston area. And of course, I want to pause here and remind our listeners that we hope you can budget a small donation to KPFT in the name of Nuestra Palabra. Latino writers have their say, so we can do our part to keep this great experiment in freedom of speech going. We want to make sure that we can always put together shows like this, our terms on our terms. Of course, we are high-tech Aztecs, or in my case, Wi-Fi Chimecas. So there is also a version that will appear on your favorite podcast streaming platform, like Spotify, Apple, or iHeartRadio. And you can also find us past episodes there as well. Again, we are talking with the Taco Mafia from Austin PBS. It's an original series, an original documentary. Super happy to have everybody here. And I want to go ahead and start the show by welcoming the producers of the show, Joe Rocha and Alex Wolf. They did a tremendous job in really capturing the essence of these group of friends, these group of taqueros, this family now that is formed, that is really combining their talents and their skills to make sure that they make the best possible tacos, but also the best possible impact with their community. Joe and Alex, thank you so much for being here. And I want to start with y'all, and any one of you can take the question. What really inspired y'all to start this documentary? Because often we don't see documentaries like this that kind of represent people like Edgar, like Anthony, like Jose, like Sarah, like Beto, where you don't go in depth into the stories. You just hear the reviews of the food, if it's good or it's bad, but you don't know what it really took to get there.
Well, first of all, thanks for having us, Rodrigo. I appreciate it. To answer your question, what I witnessed that inspired me to pitch this show to Austin PBS was really just the transparency that the Taco Mafia offered in their personal lives and on social media. When I first moved to Austin, I became a fan of them through their food, which is world class, but really took it to another level when I started following them and seeing how they support each other, how they take care of not just themselves and other businesses in the area, but their community as well. It was just something so unfamiliar to anything that I've seen. And I just knew that there was something special going on with the Taco Mafia. And there was a story there to tell that a lot of other people could learn something valuable from.
That's fantastic. I love to hear that. Joe, what were your impressions when you first met the Taco Mafia?
Well, I mean, the culinary scene and what you sort of have seen on TV, as far as cooking shows, when Alex sort of pitched the show to me, I had sort of worked on some cooking shows and some stuff sort of in the culinary scene before that here in Austin. And what struck me about these folks is, in talking about the Taco Mafia, that they're really genuine human beings. When you have a conversation with these folks, I mean, that's who they are. and what they sort of their philosophies on like how they care about the community, and all the work that they do there. That was sort of one of the things that really attracted me to work on this project. I initially had told Alex that I wasn't really interested before actually knowing anything about the Taco Mafia. And once I met them, I mean, you just fall in love with these folks. They're just amazing. Again, genuine human beings. I'm not sure how else to describe them, but they're just different. I mean, they're doing different things, and they're very community minded. They're outward looking, and it was an easy yes after meeting them in person, for sure, for me to want to work on this project.
Well, I appreciate you being honest about that. Some people would say, "Oh, you're going to jump on it," but there may have been previous experiences where you worked on food or worked on a particular show that may say, "Hey, you know what? I don't know if I want to deal with these characters or whatnot." But I have personally grown to love everybody that's on the Taco Mafia because it's just such a genuine show. When I went to the premiere there at the Austin PBS studios, I mean, it was amazing. Just everybody coming together for this story. And before I continue, though, let me go ahead and give y'all a little bit more about Joe and Alex and their background. Joe Rocha has been a videographer, producer at Austin PBS for 8 years, but has worked in television for 18 years. He grew up in San Antonio, but has lived in Austin for 20 years. At Austin PBS, he's worked as the editor of Barbecue with Franklin, produced arts and context shorts, and directed the Lone Star Emmy-winning documentary Austin Revealed, El Despertar, and worked as a video journalist on the community-led journalism project Decibel. He also plays guitar in a band called Cecilia and the Broken Hearts. Alex Wolf, who's also with us, moved to Austin in 2019 after working in Los Angeles for 10 years, including 5 years at TMZ. He left that position with the desire to produce content that strengthens communities and landed a videographer position with Austin PBS. Alex has been with the station for 3 years. He's published several stories as a video journalist for Decibel, and is also a camera operator for Austin City Limits and technical director for ATX Together. Before I go ahead and go to the taqueros, Alex and Joe, with this wealth of experience that you have and the work that you have done, what really led y'all to produce this as far as making a story, and what was kind of the impetus for that? Because I'm seeing y'all's biography, and y'all have done some incredible work already, community-driven work. How does this lead into that? How does that dovetail together?
I'll let Alex answer.
Okay, well, actually, you mentioned how Joe and I both at the same time worked for Decibel, which is a really great community-led journalism program we do at Austin PBS. And at the time, right after the winter storm of 2021, I actually pitched a little 5-minute news segment about the Taco Mafia. And it was right at the time when Decibel was transitioning into this new experimental community journalism where they were focusing on covering one specific community at a time for an extended period of time. And this story didn't really fit into that community, so it wasn't the right time for it. But it just kept building. And when it came time, when I talked to Joe about it, and he's the one who saw it as a bigger story than that. Almost a full year later, he saw it as a 4-episode series. And we were really fortunate that our new CEO of PBS agreed with us and told us to get to work right away on it.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. I also know that there was a person that we have a special mystery guest. Well, he's not a mystery anymore because he's actually on the stage now with us.
Oh, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Jose. Yeah.
Okay.
loud and clear. Yeah. So
there I am.
We have Jose Relat on the show right now. He is the taco editor at Texas Monthly and actually wrote about the Taco Mafia quite a while back. Jose, thank you for joining us on the show. I know you can only join us for a short period of time. And so please briefly tell us a little bit about your experience with the Taco Mafia.
Well, I was privy to a front row seat from the very beginning. And was very happy to see how they coalesced and grew through the through the early part of the pandemic and that winter storm, and there was something that kept coming up again and again. One of them, two of them, three of them. I pitched an article about it, and it was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be, but it was something that I hadn't seen before, something that Austin hadn't seen before. So any platform for this kind of story is beneficial.
Well, that's fantastic, and I appreciate the work that you do. I know that you're constantly out there, not just tasting tacos, but also telling the stories behind the tacos. And I think that really segues perfectly into Mr. Edgar Rico. And before I ask Edgar about the work that he's done and really this story of helping the community, I want to go ahead and introduce him properly. Edgar Rico is the executive chef and a co-owner of Nixta Taqueria. Edgar was raised in Visalia, California by first-generation immigrant parents from San Luis Potosí, Mexico. Prior to opening Nixta, Edgar attended the Culinary Institute in Hyde Park, New York. Afterwards, he moved to Los Angeles. Afterwards, he worked in Los Angeles under famed chefs Tom Colicchio and Ludo Lefebvre. I probably messed that up. I apologize. And helped Judge Shook and Vinny Delotto open their restaurant, Son of a Gun. Upon moving to Austin, Edgar joined the Peach Tortilla team, where he met his now wife, Sarah Mardambigi. One last note, and this is you are also the 2022 Emerging Chef winner for the James Beard Awards Foundation. Is that correct, Edgar?
Yes, sir. That's correct. I was there 2 years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so we hear all this work that you've done, your upbringing, the award, but this story that keeps coming up is the story of helping your community after the snowstorm. Edgar, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself through that story? Because I think that kind of tells the tale of the tape, if you will, regarding what the Taco Mafia is doing, not just for themselves as a family, but also as part of having a greater impact for the community.
Yeah. So, when Winter Storm Uri happened, actually, I remember that day very vividly. I remember waking up to like a picturesque, snowy winter day. And, me and my wife at first really didn't think much of it. And I remember just having a day out in the snow, kind of having a snow day, getting all wet and just having a good time. And then tours came back. It was like 4:00, and I remember we still didn't have power. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, maybe the power will maybe come back on at some point. A few hours slipped by, and then our house at this point, we notice it's dropping in temperature. Like we get down to like almost like low 50s, like high 40s in our house, and we just have blankets upon blankets on us. And at this point too, I remember my phone is running out of battery because we have no power. I got 3% left. And I remember just being like, who has a vehicle maybe? I'm like, oh yeah, Anthony, his girlfriend, and him, he's got like an off-road, like all-wheel drive vehicle. And I remember calling him up and just being like, hey, like, I don't know if you guys have any power or where you're at, but like my phone's about to die. We don't have a way to get, anywhere. And he's like, dude, actually, like his girlfriend at the time was actually living in an apartment which happened to have power because they lived like on the same line as the generator where like a fire department was. So like, you notice all those places never lost power. And, thankfully, like Anthony came and like picked me and Sarah up and like, literally like saved me from like dying of like freeze. But then I remember, I think we kept looking at reports that night and we were just like, man, I don't think it doesn't seem like it's going to be like a day or two. Like this is going to go on for a magnitude of days to which we don't know. And I remember that day just like looking at some videos too of seeing like, HEB that had like, 3 or 4 hour waits out of the, just lines snaking out of HEB, like I remember we went to a convenience store to just pick up anything we could, and there was nothing there. Like all the shelves were like cleared out. And at that point, we started thinking to ourselves, we're like, damn, okay, well, I remember it just happened to be a Tuesday when we went on the day that it happened. So I remember being like, man, like we knew, all of us as like taquerias, we knew like Monday was our big prep day. So we had like a lot of food prepped out and ready to go. So we were like, man, like I remember we went to Nixta that next morning just to check up on everything. And we're like, damn, we still got gas. And we're like, well, I remember calling Beto and we're like, yo, Beto, I remember I called Jerry and like Tony from Side Eye and just being like, y'all, like, if you guys got any food, like, I got power. I got some gas here at Nixta. Like, you guys just want to try and throw down something. We can cook up a big pot of something and let's just give it all away instead of like, throwing out all this food that we have ready to go. And I remember that day we made vats of like pozole with like all of our mise en place and ingredients that we had. And I remember we put out like a message on Instagram somewhere around like 2:00. We were like, hey, we're going to be passing out free bowls of pozole. First come, first serve. Whoever comes, like come through. I remember we made somewhere between like 500 portions of pozole. But I remember within like 30 minutes of us putting out that Instagram story, there was like 100 people lined up outside of Nixta, like ready to go. And we were like, whoa, shit, like this is bigger than maybe we thought. And all 500 portions were gone in like 2 hours. Like, people just, showed up. And then at that point, people started DMing us being like, hey, can you send food this way? Can you send food this way? And, I remember we were like, damn, well, let's just keep kind of clearing out some of our mise en place. But I remember we called some of our purveyors too, because we're like, man, none of these guys probably got power either. Like, they have like warehouses full of food, that may, be potentially wasted. So we asked all of them, like, just trying to pull some favors. We're like, hey, like, we're trying to cook for, people. There's a need. People are asking us. We have gas. Like, we got hands. We got people that want to cook. Like, can you guys spare any product? And most of them were like gracious enough to be like, yeah, like, if you guys are willing to come pick it up, like, we'll give you guys, like, we'll fill up your vehicles with whatever we got and, just have at it. And, we at that point put out like a back call to like anyone that was a chef or that wanted to come help out at Nixta. And, that just slowly started building like day by day by day. We got in contact with more organizations. And like, by the end of the week, I remember that Saturday, it was like that day was the biggest like day that we had. We cooked for like over like probably like 3,000, 4,000 people that day. Like we had over 150 volunteers inside of Nixta. Like, that was that point in my life where I was just like, wow, we are doing something that, the scale of this is like so much bigger than what we thought. And we were just, just so glad that we saw just community just really come together like that in a really times of need and just like show up and just, just do something that was like really meaningful. Like for me, I've been very fortunate enough in my life that I cooked for like a lot of people. Like I've been lucky enough to cook for Obama when he was president, or like Jay-Z and Beyonce, but like nothing in my life will ever be more meaningful than that day. I remember just like going back and just stepping back for a second and just like kind of a cry, because I was like, just like, it was just so beautiful to see like just people come together like this and like do something that was like really special, and just see people that like really appreciate it when they needed it the most. So yeah, it was a beautiful thing to see.
Edgar, what a fantastic story to share. And I think that really kind of speaks to the essence of the Taco Mafia. And I wanted to kick it back to Jose really quick because I know he has to go. But Jose, tell us a little bit more about that, because I know that you do food writing, but it's not just about the food. It's about the community, and it's about these folks that work in the industry and the work that they do to the community, for the community. Tell us a little bit more about that and why it's important to highlight these stories and make sure that we get not just any representation, but good representation, whether it's on a simple Instagram post or in an article or on a story or on a documentary on PBS.
Look at all these Spanish language names on these, headers, for the video. It's fantastic that I had the opportunity to tell stories, because things like this, the Taco Mafia came up at a time where it was needed, where you could see a dividing line in the taco history of Austin, where there was cutthroat competitiveness. For example, the owners of Veracruz had some sort of substance smeared all over their trailer on the inside with no support network. Well, now we have a support network, and they come from a place of honesty. Beto, for example, one day told me, "I know we're not at the level of San Antonio, but we're trying." And that was something that I never expected to hear from someone in Austin. So it's these little moments, whether it's vulnerability, whether it's crisis, whether it's seeing something that can be done and doing it, and being able to tell those stories is an honor. But let's get something straight. I'm just a conduit for these narratives. Alex, Joe, and I, we tell these stories for the same reason. They're underrepresented narratives, they're community narratives, and they deserve to be told. We just happen to shift the lens.
Thank you so much for that, Jose. And I know you got to run, but thank you for really contributing that and really kind of spotlighting how folks like yourself, Joe, and Alex definitely are vessels for getting these stories out, because the stories are there. Many times when it comes to nuestra comunidad, nuestra gente, folks want to go to the same stories that are always told, right? Immigration stories, gangster stories, stuff like that. And there's so much richness in nuestra cultura and so many stories that need to be told. And right here, we're talking about these stories, and we're talking about Austin PBS's original series, Taco Mafia. You're joining us right now with the cast and members of the crew, and we're talking about that vulnerability, that authenticity. So I appreciate Jose for stopping by on the show, but that's also a great segue towards vulnerability. And one of the aspects that I love about the Taco Mafia is really talking about real stuff, real things that happen to people and how they can affect us. I want to talk to Anthony and Jose right now, because their portion of the series, I've seen all 3 episodes that are out right now. There's only 3 that are out right now, correct?
Episode 4 just
there's
dropped
4?
today. Dropped today.
It just dropped today? Okay. Well, that's my fault. I am a Taco Mafia fanatic, so I'll get right on it right after this show. No, I'm serious. Look, I have a collection of Spurs hats.
Oh, yeah.
I have a collection of Spurs hats, but look, right here. There it is.
Yeah.
I got my Taco Mafia hat. But going back to the episodes that I saw, one of the things that I love is the vulnerability. Jose and Anthony share their story during this. And again, props to Joe and Alex for really bringing this out. But a lot of times folks are not vulnerable enough or can't really share these things that happen to them. And I'll let Anthony and Jose talk about Discada. Let me go ahead and introduce both of them, and then they can share kind of the role that they play, not just in the Taco Mafia, but the story that they're sharing on the series, because I think it's so compelling to really be honest and be vulnerable about your story and what it took you to get where you're at. Because so many people sometimes think that, oh, they just started making food and it was like that, and now they have a great business. But it really, sometimes you have to climb a mountain to get to that point. But before we get to that, let me go ahead and introduce Anthony Prato. He is the co-owner of Discada. Anthony was raised by Italian-American parents in the Pacific Northwest. At age 13, he and his dad moved to Houston, where he became friends with Jose Velasco. Anthony moved into his own apartment at the age of 16, and at 19, he took a long journey of self-discovery through South America. Upon returning, he attempted to open a food truck in Austin, but did not find success until convincing Jose to open the Discada truck. I also want to introduce Jose Velasco. He's the co-owner of Discada. Originally from Texcoco, just outside of Mexico City, he immigrated to the U.S. with his family when he was 12 years old. He met Anthony Prato in middle school the following year. After graduating high school, Jose worked at a restaurant while attending trade school, but before he could graduate, he lost his financial aid and was unable to finish. He was lost until Anthony convinced him to move to Austin and open a Discada truck. And before I kick it off to both of y'all, I love that biography, okay? There's just an openness and an honesty in that biography where you're just saying like, hey, look, I didn't get to do this, but it wasn't until I get my buddy to open this up and we finally, it's just a refreshing honesty and a genuineness that you don't find often. But I think that's what really separates your story from other stories in the taco mundo, the taco world, if you will. The openness and the vulnerability. Tell us a little bit more about Discada and really y'all's journey, y'all's collective journey that's highlighted throughout the shows, especially in episode 3. I got to be honest, episode 3 really touched me. I saw the ending. I was like, oh my God, this happens and people don't understand what happens. I won't spoil it because I want people to listen, watch the show, but tell us a little bit more about the vulnerability and how y'all came to open up Discada.
Okay, I'll start with that one, Jose. So again, I'm Anthony. I'm Jose's best friend and co-owner of Discada. Discada starts way back. I'm talking about probably we're 15 years old is when I was introduced like regularly to Discada. From that moment on, not only did I fall in love with the dish, I fell in love more with Jose's family, his tradition that he was representing through food and just through the way they treated me. And like, I felt like I belonged there. Like I felt belonged in a community that was, I don't want to say like, it was not much different than like my upbringing, but it just kind of highlighted all the positive things that I liked about my culture and being Italian and coming up in an Italian upbringing, right? So I fell in love with the whole process of Discada from a very young age. I was very vocal about it to him and his parents, right away. It's like, I respect y'all in what you're doing so much. Like, I think I see something that maybe y'all just are used to, but like, I see something very special, and I see something that like has sparked this ambition in me that I haven't felt ever, like it was very, pivotal for me, and I just never let go of that. So fast forward years later, I still never let go of like wanting to share that experience with as many people as I could. Right? The only thing I'm missing is consent and permission from Jose and his family, but I never did anything with it. And like you were saying, like I did some food ventures. I've always been involved by food and in the service industry and worked in restaurants my whole life. But something about Discada, the preparation, the story behind it, everything, like how it brought people together, it never left my head. So I was always, and you can ask Jose, anytime he would come visit me or anything, like I would always bring up Discada, ask for us to cook Discada, and like I just wanted to share those moments from our adolescence in current times and with as many friends as possible. So he was like, all right, man, you're kind of a little, like dude, I'm still gonna come, but like I might not bring Discada. We would joke around, like I'd be like, don't even come. No, I mean obviously I was joking, but like that's how serious it was. So I never stopped mentioning that to him, you know. And then fast forward years, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, you know, I had never stopped talking about it. I had a little experience. And as you saw in, I think, episode 3, Jose was very vulnerable with me. Back to the keyword you were talking about, Rodrigo. He was being very vulnerable with me on this trip we took to New York about how, you know, things just weren't panning out like he was hoping. And he was just kind of a little bit lost. And he brought up, man, you're always talking about Discada. Like, what would that take? You know, just kind of probing me a little bit, asking me questions. And I was getting excited because I'm like, well, where's this coming from? Like, wait, hold on. Like, because imagine like years and years and years of like exhausting the point. Like we should do this. And just kind of like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. But like now he's like inquiring about like what it would take, because he knows that I've had experience with food trucks at this point. I was like, you know, kind of like as much as I could organize like step by step, like how we would get started. So after that trip, you know, I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and I didn't want to pry him anymore, right? So I waited a little bit, and he hit me up a couple weeks later, and he just said, let's do it. And I was like, you know, let's do what? Like say it. And he did. So I acted on it very fast, because I know like moments like that can be fleeting. So as soon as he said that, I had his consent. That's the only thing I was ever waiting for. I would never, ever, ever do any of this without him. And he knows that. As soon as he said, let's do it, that was my cue. And I got it done like very fast. Like within 2 weeks, I had the design and the build already going. And before he even moved here, I had the whole truck done. So I'm like, hey, what's your excuse? You know, there's no backing out now. And he's like, man, I don't even have a place to live and this and that. Come stay in my house. Come live with me. You know, he came, lived with me. We got it going. It was like 6 months of trial, test runs, going in there day to day, tweaking recipes, figuring out how to do it on a commercial level, but like still maintaining the quality that we knew, you know, growing up. So we were actually giving out Discada to the neighborhood while we were doing test runs. There's a couple test runs that we didn't want to give out, so we just invited close friends that, you know, we're like, okay, this isn't exactly how we want it, but we don't want to waste food. So we'd call everyone in our close friends, contact and family and stuff, and like, here's some free Discada, make a little party out of it, whatever.
Or we just give it away to people walking.
Yeah, or give it away to people walking. And then we started making them like official. Like we did probably like 30.
It was a little less, but yeah, I was definitely over 20
of test runs, just to get the flow of the truck going, and also like practice cooking on a mode that's different than we're used to. Because again, like there were not really blueprints for Discada. We couldn't really find a lot of commercial businesses doing it, because like these are custom made disco de arados, the tractor plow discs, and custom burners that we made for it. We made sure it was like the same exact diameter and all that. Like, you know, we nerded out on it, and it took a long time. But I remember our opening day, I just like I looked at him and I was like, this is gonna take off, you know. And he's still a little skeptical, but I never was. And I think just like him being skeptical made us like fine tune every detail and leave no stone unturned, like in terms of like starting up with the operation, right? But I think like my positive outlook over everything, like it was a good balance of like making it take off from the beginning, because you got one person who's very optimistic, and then one person who's like, you know, he wants to be optimistic, but he's also it's something that he holds so dear to his heart that he like feels a certain type of way about introducing it to the world without it being done properly. So I really appreciated that, because he had a very extreme sense of detail with every sort of daily operation. And then it got to a point where we were both kind of meeting each other in the middle, and we were comfortable with doing it the way we're doing it. And that's when like vulnerability started the business, but also vulnerability took off the business, because we had to like set our egos aside and just kind of come to terms with, hey, like this is an equal endeavor. And if you're not happy with the way things are going and I'm not happy with the way things are going, like we need to work together to make it us versus the problem, not us versus each other, right? So we learned how to be very vulnerable with each other during the start of it, when it was kind of uncharted territory, right? So that took a lot of getting used to and adjusting, but it eventually, after repetition and consistency and just staying consistent every day, was really like the key ingredient to making Discada where it is today. But I don't think it's our two types of personalities together that I think like really made it happen probably faster than we thought. And again, I would have never done this without him, and I could never do this without him. So yeah, that's really just being vulnerable is the key word of our success story in a way.
Sí, yo creo que, o sea, la manera en la que se dio todo fue porque, exactamente como dice Anthony, o sea, que haya un balance entre las dos personalidades, porque él quería muchas cosas y él, pero yo me ponía nervioso de muchas cosas, exactamente es algo tan, ¿no? Yo crecí, que fue parte de mi familia, toda mi herencia, que me dio mi papá, que creó mi papá. Entonces el hecho de que él lo viera y él tuviera tanta fe desde el principio y poder, o sea, y que se esforzara tanto en convencerme, en que todo saliera bien, en que tuviera la confianza de darme, o sea, todo el tiempo y todos los recursos que él se esforzó en agarrar para poder hacer que el negocio empezara y creciera con eso, a mí se me hace que en realidad fue una fuerza de balance, ¿no? Fue un jalar y empujar, pero fue algo que balanceadamente nos llevó adelante como socios de negocio. Y pues, obviamente la confianza ayuda mucho, porque pues, yo lo conozco desde que éramos, como dicen, niños. Yo llegando acá, él fue de mis primeros amigos, tuvo una manera de ser que como que encajaba mucho con la manera en la que yo era. Y eso es difícil, porque cuando vienes de otro país y llegas a un país ajeno que no es tuyo, pues obviamente es difícil a veces hacer clic con las personas, porque pues un shock de cultura, ¿no? Entonces obviamente cuando tú lo estás viendo y todas las cosas con las que creciste y se te hace normal, llegas acá y pues, la gente lo ve es un poco difícil, porque es diferente. Entonces, o sea, ser aceptado y todas esas cosas, pues te cuesta un poco más de trabajo abrirte con la demás gente. Entonces, que haya habido esa facilidad entre los dos de poder comunicarnos, aunque para empezar mi inglés estaba del nabo, ¿no? O sea, mi inglés estaba tirado pero que haya habido esa facilidad para poder empezar o sea, y empezó, toda esta amistad empezó como niños, ¿entiendes? No tenía nada que ver con cuestiones de negocio, pero él siempre le vio ese potencial. Él decía, esto es algo que se puede, o sea, es algo que nos gusta hacer, nos divertimos haciéndolo, es parte de quién eres y de tu familia y todo, y esto lo podríamos hacer un negocio. Y claramente tenía razón, pero pues obviamente tenían que pasar muchas cosas en el camino y en las dos historias, la de él y la mía, para que pudiéramos llegar al punto necesario donde nosotros estábamos juntos y decíamos, claro, esto tiene sentido ahora, ¿me entiendes? Yo tenía que fallar en muchas cosas, tenía que aprender muchas cosas, igual él. Entonces, una vez que maduras y empiezas a ver toda esa o sea, que se va formando ese pequeño cráter donde dices, aquí es cuando. Ahí yo creo que eso es algo muy especial, ¿me entiendes? Y es algo que me ayuda a mí a crecer como persona y como dueño de negocio, bueno, y como amigo y como persona. Entonces, agradezco mucho que hayan pasado las cosas como tuvo que pasar y que se haya dado, o sea, porque no solo es tener a las personas adecuadas, también tener el lugar adecuado, que para mi gusto, este lugar fue Austin, ¿me entiendes? Yo viviendo en Houston, no sé cómo hubieran funcionado las cosas, o sea, ahora que... ¿Manda?
Tal vez.
Sí. No, yo creo que o sea, tenía que pasar acá para poder... Ahorita yo ya estaría más cómodo, por ejemplo, haciendo algo más, porque mi familia todavía vive en Houston. Entonces, algo en otra ciudad o algo así, pero ya teniendo la información y todas las características que he agarrado durante los últimos 5 años en los que crecí el negocio con él, ¿me entiendes? Entonces, en el lugar adecuado, el momento adecuado, las personas correctas, entonces todo eso yo creo que son pequeños detalles que a veces no nos damos cuenta, pero son necesarios que vayan pasando, requiere el tiempo que se debe de hacer. Entonces, pues sí.
Sí.
Eso me hace bastante increíble que haya pasado todo eso.
Bueno, José.
¿No?
Sí, ok, perdón, creo que se hizo freeze o algo. Pero Anthony, I really appreciate you giving us that story. And again, it just goes to show that vulnerability, that honesty, the authenticity that's really missing a lot of times from narratives. A lot of people want to say that, hey, they got there, they did it because they always had this dream and they did this and that, but then they failed to kind of share those moments where, yeah, there's some failure there, and José, gracias por compartir todo eso, porque muchas veces la gente no miran todo el trabajo, todos los fracasos que tuvo que pasar para llegar a ese momento. Y tengo otra pregunta para ti, pero antes que te haga esa pregunta, I wanted to go back briefly to Joe and Alex really quick, because there are so many moments in the Taco Mafia story, whether you're talking about Edgar and Sarah, their love story, whether you're talking about really the touching story of Beto and how he really is, striving to do something for his child, or the story of the friendship and really the kind of the trajectory that both Jose and Anthony have gone through. How are you able to capture these moments and determine what fits and what doesn't? Because I really feel like the biggest thing about Taco Mafia is not really the tacos, it's the heart. It's the heart of the story, the family, the community, everything that goes through there. Could you comment on that and how tough it was to show some of these moments and where y'all came to make those decisions to, show what parts it is, what parts come up on the TV screen?
I can let Alex answer, and then I can piggyback on what he says here.
Okay, sure. Can you just repeat that for me, Rodrigo, please?
Yeah, I was just asking, where do you make the decision what content gets featured on there? Because there's so many good moments of vulnerability where y'all talking about different aspects of each taquero story, whether it's a love story and kind of going back to the roots with a Sarah and Edgar, or kind of the trajectory that Anthony and Jose had to go through in order to get where they're at. How do you come across being able to show that authenticity? Because like I said earlier, I think the biggest part about the Taco Mafia story is really not the tacos, but the heart of the story, the family of the story.
Right. Well, first off, thank you for noticing that. I mean, that's something that Joe and I were definitely committed to, was making this a show that's not about the food. It's about the incredible people behind the incredible food. And, seeing these people do these incredible things for each other during times of need, for their community during times of need. The biggest question I had watching them do this was why? Why are they doing this? What motivates them to do this when they're small business owners, independently owned, in the middle of a pandemic? Most people don't even have the ability to do this if they wanted to, but they're doing it whether they have the ability to or not. They're finding a way to do it. And I needed to know why. I was just really fortunate that all 5 of them were willing to be so honest, so vulnerable, so transparent with me. I know these words keep coming up, but all I did was ask pretty basic questions, and they gave me some really complex, honest, vulnerable, exposing answers that made a lot of sense and just needed to be told.
And we did like 3 to 4 hour pre-interviews with each person, and literally started with tell us how you grew up and how we got from point A to point B. And all the stories were there. I think it was not a question of how difficult it's going to be to put this together, but what do we use, and how much of it can we use? Because every story that they were telling us was so rich. And me and Alex just sat down for a couple of weeks, or around this time last year actually, and then just started sort of putting the stories together, and everything just sort of kind of fit in like serendipitous. And we kind of made it like a little game plan, and was so interesting to look at our notes from last year and compare it to what we actually created. That was pretty close. It was pretty close to what we sort of envisioned. So, and the folks on the Taco Mafia just made it so easy. They were so open with us and shared all of their stories, and we're so grateful for all of that. Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is that these folks are not they're not just restaurants. Like, they're making community, and to me, that's one of the biggest things that I saw in hearing their stories, and what was so important to tell these stories. I grew up in San Antonio and working at my uncle's restaurant, and what he did with his restaurant was make community. You would see all walks of life walk in there, and if you go to any of these businesses, if you go to Nixta, Big Red Rick is in there hanging out, and the people from across the street at the Section 8 are chilling. If you go to these Discada, I mean, the folks in the community are there hanging out. If you go to Cuantos, I mean, you see the regulars mixing in with new people, and that's what it's all about. It's creating like an experience for your community, and always giving back. And for me, like, it really wasn't difficult. We just did what we do, and they did what they did, and we captured it. We're really, really, really lucky to.
Well, I really appreciate that. Before I go to Jose for a question, and then I'm going to ask Edgar to also chime in on that. But I just wanted to note how important and how critical what Joe said, and also what Anthony said about being respectful, about taking care with the knowledge and the content that you have, right? Because these are stories that need to be told. These are recipes that are held by families. And I love that Anthony said, man, I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm not going to just go out there and just no, this is their stuff. And I want to be a part of it. I want to build community. Joe said right now, hey, I'm sorry, not Alex. Alex said right now, hey, I see this story. This has got to get out there. We got to tell it. We got to tell the story. And I love that we can come together and really bring these stories that are part of the community, because oftentimes we don't get to see these stories. And one question that I wanted to talk to, just ask Jose, was really the vulnerability. There's a scene there in episode 3 where he really opens up his heart. And I just wanted to ask him a quick question. I don't want to give away the scene, because I definitely want people to tune in and watch the Taco Mafia on Austin PBS. You can catch it. The weekly episode drops every week, and you can catch it online on PBS, austinpbs.org. Pero José, te quería hacer una pregunta.
Dime.
Cuando estás hablando de lo que te pasó una vez cuando saliste afuera, ¿verdad? Y pasó un incidente. No quiero hablar del incidente aquí, porque pues yo francamente quiero que la gente vaya al PBS y que pueden ver el episodio, porque pues francamente muchas veces la gente no quiere hablar de esos fracasos, porque obviamente tiene mucha pena, ¿verdad? Y a lo mejor uno no está listo para hablar, pero dinos un poquito por qué querías compartir esa historia con la gente. ¿Por qué te sentiste bien para decir, sabes qué, esto me pasó a mí, pero lo voy a compartir? ¿Por qué querías compartir eso?
Mira, yo creo que hay varias razones. La primera, obviamente, es porque, quiera o no, yo lo considero una victoria o un fracaso, sigue siendo parte de mi historia. Entonces, yo creo que para que entiendas el proceso de la historia de todo lo que me ha pasado a mí, no puedo contarte nada más lo bueno. También te tengo que contar en donde la regué, donde hay momentos oscuros, ¿me entiendes? O sea, no puedes nada más, si tú pintas una historia pensando que todo es color rosa, realmente no agarras la gravedad o las cosas buenas o malas no tienen el mismo peso. Entonces, yo creo que la historia se tiene que se tiene que contar completa. Luego, la segunda, obviamente, fue que yo y Alex me dieron, o sea, crearon un hábito alrededor de nosotros que yo me sentía en confianza, ¿me entiendes? Contar esas cosas no es fácil cuando no creas como un escenario en el que tú te sientes a gusto contando esas cosas, porque quieras o no, pues no es cómodo, pero es la realidad. Entonces, eso se lo agradezco mucho a Joe y a Alex, ¿me entiendes? Que hayan salido de toda esa zona para crear ese pequeño escenario donde nosotros nos podíamos subir y contar lo que fuera sin ser, una, juzgados, y dos, o sea, sentirnos como que aunque sea algo malo, o sea, no me siento como un fracaso, ¿me entiendes? Y la tercera cosa por la que yo creo que se tenía que contar es porque hay esa parte de la historia, no quiero decir nada exactamente por el episodio, pero esa parte de la historia es como que lo que es el catalista de varias cosas que pasan, que me siguen pasando después. Y eso yo creo que sin contarla, o sea, yo esa historia la llevo conmigo desde hace muchos años. Y en realidad hay cosas que no cambian, ¿me entiendes? Y entonces yo dije, pues, ¿qué es lo peor que puede pasar si nada más pongo mi historia a la luz? Y es a ver, porque no puedo ser el único que le haya pasado, ¿me entiendes? Esto le pasa a mucha gente, pero simplemente no están cómodos contándolo. Entonces, si alguien sale y dice, ok, mira, esto pasa y hay mucha gente en esta situación, pero ¿qué es? A lo mejor una comunidad que se pueda hacer de personas que hayan tenido ciertos problemas de tal, y poder decir, ok, o sea, no está todo perdido, no está todo mal, ¿me entiendes? ¿Qué puede mejorar? ¿Qué puede salir bueno de una situación mala? ¿Me entiendes? Porque a lo mejor, o sea, la información se pasa en el hecho de que, bueno, yo sé que esto me pasó a mí y esto es como surgió, ¿me entiendes? Pero alguien más puede decir, bueno, yo tengo algo parecido, una historia parecida, y concurren en esto, pero pudo haber hecho esto, y así empiezas a mover o sea, lo que son los engranes para mejorar las cosas, ¿me entiendes? Hay gente que se cae y luego dice, no, pues es que no tiene caso. Pues no, claro que sí, todos nos caemos, pero ve, o sea, yo me caí y luego, gracias a Dios, o sea, logré llegar a un punto donde me rodeé con gente que me ayudó, y yo ahorita estoy bastante feliz con las cosas que he logrado, con todos, incluyendo a Edgar, a Sara, a Joe, a Alex, a Anthony, a Beto, a todos ellos, hasta Jerry, todos, ¿me entiendes? Todas esas cosas son como que no es el final o no es lo que pasa, o sea, son cosas malas que pasan, pero es cómo lidias con ellas, con los problemas para poder seguir adelante.
No, me encanta esa respuesta y muy agradecido compartir eso con todos, con nosotros, porque muchas veces eso es lo que pasa. Uno está en un periodo oscuro y dice, nomás a mí me pasó, pero con usted compartir esa historia, a lo mejor alguien escucha y dice, no soy el único que está pasando sobre eso. And I think that's really important to say that, and you said a really good quote right now. You said, whether it's a victory or a tragedy, it's still part of my story. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the Taco Mafia series. You show those ups and downs. There's not just a constant up and like, oh, I did this, I did that. No, there's some real life situations going on there. And going to Edgar and asking him about his story. I think I particularly enjoy Sarah and Edgar's story and how really Joe and Alex have really just done a beautiful job of just kind of showing that story and detailing how, it's a process, right? And it's a relationship there. Sarah is the co-owner of Nixta along with Edgar Rico. Edgar, tell us a little bit more about the relationship. Tell us a little bit more. I did manage to catch when y'all are traveling and y'all are tasting tacos together and you're introducing these flavors and so forth. Tell us a little bit more about that. But also, I want you to touch on the fact that, this community that y'all have built, it's definitely something special because, you are a James Beard Award winner. You could easily not be hanging out with these guys. There's so many people out there that they let these medals get to their head. They let these awards get to them. Tell us a little bit more about that process too, and being able to stay grounded, even though, there may be opportunities where, hey, you could just say, hey, I'm over here now, gotta go, so forth.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremostly, like Sarah, there is no Nixta without Sarah. Like, I I've always been that person. I'm like, she literally set up, Nixta from, I think really doing the nitty gritty work that like people don't really see. Having to do all those calls to the city and like file permitting thing, like the not fun stuff of the business side that people don't really, talk about. But, she is so crucial in like making sure that literally all of us, the Taco Mafia, are organized and like making sure that like we get shit done. Because without her, like we would be like a hot mess and we would never get anything done. But yeah, she's kind of like, the person that gives me a lot of balance in my life, because I am a very, I always kind of have this mentality of like go, 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 go. But she kind of slows me down a lot and is just like kind of like take a step back, like let's analyze this and kind of like figure out like what's the best way to like attack this. I think with opening up Nixta, like we had all odds stacked against us. We decided to not take on an investor, and we wanted to do this vision that was 100% ours, so we didn't want that compromised by anyone by taking outside money. And we put a huge risk at we put our life savings up, and you gambled on ourselves. And we're very fortunate that gamble paid off, because it was either that or go back to working for someone else. But we really believed in what we were trying to create was something unique to Austin and what we had to offer. At the time, I think Suerte was probably the only one doing nixtamalization at that point, and also El Naranjo. So it was like a very, small group of restaurants that were really doing that. But we kind of saw an opportunity in doing it in like a casual, more approachable standpoint, as opposed to something that was like more restaurant oriented like that. So, Sarah quit her job and so did I, and we just went for it. And we're very fortunate that along the way we found, Anthony and Jose. We were kind of like the first people that kind of clicked up together as friends. Like I remember we were like a block away from where we live, from Discada. And I remember when they first opened, honest to God, I didn't go there for like 3 months, because I remember eating Discada in Mexico, and like a lot of people put weenies in it. And for me, I just hate weenies in Discada. I don't know why. It was like a lot of Discadas are so different compared to like what they had. But I remember the first time I ate their Discada, it was like just love at first bite. It was like so complex, like eating the taco, like, there was like that acid that I had in it from the pineapple, the heat from like the habanero, like salsa, and like just a really well-rounded taco, and like unlike anything I had ever eaten in my life before. And immediately at that point, I knew, I was like, damn, these guys, they're good people. Like you could tell, like they were just like really humble dudes and really loved the way they moved and how they carried themselves. And, I had told them as I continued frequenting their business, like, hey, like I'm also a chef too, I want to eventually open up like a taqueria. That's why I moved here, is with this intention. And, Anthony was a big part of like, really helping, me and Sarah kind of navigate some parts of the city that we were kind of just unfamiliar with. And, he was a huge resource and someone we were really grateful to have along the way. But then, yeah, this kind of community just kind of started building through that. And then Beto got into the fold really like after I remember it was like a week before we were getting ready to open. I remember Jose and Anthony coming and telling me, they're like, dude, we just had some of the best tacos we've ever had in Austin. And I was like, wow. And I remember like Jose, especially, Jose's a tough cookie to impress, I feel like, with tacos, because he's from Mexico City. And like, he knows tacos very well. And if they were saying that they were doing Mexico City style tacos, and him saying he was impressed, I was like, okay, like we got to go check this guy out. Obviously, this guy's doing something really special. And I remember just pulling up to Beto's spot for the first time, and seeing that little yellow bus parked inside of Fast Eddie's on the side of like a tire shop. It was like 10 p.m. He was bumping like Grupo Frontera or something like that. It was just like a vibe. And I remember eating his suadero and just like fireworks going off in my mind and just like, wow, just completely being blown away. And I think from that moment on, we really all had this mutual admiration and respect for each one of our crafts and what we did. And we all knew that what we were doing was just so different individually in terms of like what we were doing in terms of taco styles. And, you know, that community just kind of started like that. And, you know, their network of like friends and followers all kind of started intersecting, and we just built this like, you know, amazing little corner of cultura here on the east side of Austin that, you know, we're really proud of. And, you know, as this continues to spread, as, you know, we get people like Joe and Alex who spread this message, and like, you know, we really hope that other people around the country and other taqueros see this and like, you know, see that, you know, it's better to work united and together as, you know, a group of like people who just want to take care of their communities. And like, I think, you know, moving forward, I think as Latinos and as, you know, a movement, we know Latinos are eventually going to be powers in number, the dominant group in America. And, you know, I think we need to all start having that mindset of working together, because we can all achieve really, you know, amazing and incredible things together, as we have seen, you know, in this little pocket here of Austin.
Well, I particularly appreciate the concept of collaboration over competition. It's still competing, right? Because y'all are pushing each other to be the best that you are, but you're also collaborating and not, you know, bumping heads or having egos, and etc. I know that it's very tough whenever you find a contemporary that probably matches you, you know, when it comes to the food or when it comes to technique and so forth. But it's amazing that y'all have been able to come together and really form that bond. And we're going to start wrapping up the show right now. But I wanted to go back to Anthony, and then I'll go back to the producers for a final word for everybody. But Anthony, what really separates that? Because I'm sure you meet a lot of other taqueros as well. I'm sure you meet a lot of other restaurateurs, entrepreneurs, and so forth. But what really separates the Taco Mafia and the bonds that you have created from other friendships and relationships that you may have out there that really tells you, you know what, this is, you know, we're the Taco Mafia, but we really are about family?
So first off, I'd like to expand on what you said, because the community of Austin is really where I fell in love with, you know, cooking and being in the hospitality industry and all that, right? So that being said, everybody that I meet that I feel is taking their craft as seriously as, for example, Jose and I at Discada, or like Edgar or Beto, like we can recognize the hard work and effort that it takes to produce a product that is mind-blowing, right? Like, and consistent. I immediately have, you've immediately gained my respect if I've experienced that, right? So that being said, everybody that I've gotten close with is because of a mutual respect for the craft. So there's a lot of behind the scenes, quote unquote, members of the Taco Mafia that aren't mentioned or highlighted as like in the same moniker as us, right, of Taco Mafia. But we have a lot of like affiliates, we like to say, that they're all our friends, and we consider all of them familia. So personally, like the question of what separates the Taco Mafia from like the rest is really like everybody that we bring in that we're close with in the food world are all doing something that we respect, and we've all gained a mutual respect for each other, and we do things to help each other out, even like behind the scenes. That's not under like the name Taco Mafia, right? Like there's a handful of chefs and restaurants in town that we've done a lot of work with that we respect just as much. So I think it goes more down to Austin as a community. There's something special in Austin, and we just kind of highlighted those attributes by banding up and making it known and like representing it. Like we represent the Taco Mafia fully, but there's a lot of special talent and beautiful people in this community that we couldn't have done it without, that may have not been mentioned or may just kind of like been skimmed over, but they're just as important as Beto, you know, Cuantos, Nixta, La Tunita, Palo Seco now, and Discada. I think we're just very fortunate to be in this community. There's something in the air, the water here that just makes people help each other out. And I haven't really seen a lot of competition in the 10 plus years that I've been in the industry in Austin. It's been very collaborative, and I think we just kind of bolstered that, something that was already there, and just kind of made it like, hey, we should own this. You know, this is how it should be. We should own this. And just by doing, you know, mutual acts together of cooking for each other or for the community, we kind of highlighted what I think was already existing in this community. So we're very fortunate to have people like Joe and Alex to tell the story and kind of highlight and get people to understand what it was from the ground up of quote unquote Taco Mafia, but also the theme that you said earlier of that you appreciated, the collaboration over competition. I think that already existed here, and we're fortunate enough to be able to be in the driver's seat and tell the story.
I really appreciate that, Anthony. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I think it is important to note that, hey, you know what? We're a collective, and yes, we're featured, but there's more people that are involved and they help the story grow as well. We're about to wrap the show up, but we've been talking with the Taco Mafia, the cast and crew. The Taco Mafia is a PBS original, an Austin PBS original. It's a new generation of taqueros based out of Austin, Texas, that are showing how to achieve success in a post-pandemic world while expanding the impact that a business can have in its own community. And we're talking to Edgar, Rico, and as well as other folks from the owners of Discada, and as well as Joe and Alex, producers for the show. We want to go ahead and start wrapping up the show, but I want to give everybody a final word, something that they want to share, something that really they hope that maybe folks get out of the show. I know personally that I've watched the shows intently, and I love the family aspect. I love the community, the sense of community that is prevalent in these shows. And I really hope that people do watch the Taco Mafia, because it really is more than just tacos. It's about people coming together, helping the community, making an impact. Joe, Alex, any final words that y'all want to share with the audience to really kind of motivate them to get there on austinpbs.org and watch the shows, as well as the shows that are upcoming on Austin PBS?
For me personally, there's two things that I really hope people take away from the show if they choose to give the show their time, which I really hope they do. One is that, like Anthony talked about, this isn't something that they necessarily invented. They're just doing it really well. There are people like the Taco Mafia in every city across the country who deserve the support of their community, the recognition of the community, and to be embraced by their community. And that doesn't always happen across the country, and it needs to. The second is that, Austin has become a pretty cool place in the public's eye. And I think a lot of people around the country don't really know what it is that makes Austin so special. And amidst all the change that the city is growing through, I think it's important to remind people that people like Edgar, people like Anthony and Jose, people like Beto and Sarah, and the restaurants that they've created, the communities that they've created, are exactly what makes Austin so special and deserves to be celebrated in town.
I think Alex sort of hit it on the nail there completely. But for me, I just want to really thank Alex for asking me to be a part of this project with him and being a partner in this project. And I want to thank the folks in the Taco Mafia, but also want to thank all the collaborators that worked on the show, from Iron Reyes, who did the music, and Gina Chavez and Michael Ramos, who provided the theme song, Nati and Claudia and Holocene and Blair, and everyone that touched the project. I want to thank, because we, as there's a community of taqueros, these folks reach other people and other practices. There's muralists and there's musicians, and there's it really is a community. It's there's the food, but then there's all these other people that are there enjoying the food but also collaborating with these folks. So I just want to thank everyone that's touched the project for sure.
I appreciate that so much. I want to go ahead and go to Jose first. And Jose, any final words that you want to share? Unas últimas palabras que quieres compartir con todos, que tal vez les puedes decir, hey, miren el show Taco Mafia.
Sí, pues digo, pues, más que nada la audiencia, ojalá y les guste es un producto que hicimos entre todos, incluyendo a la gente de PBS, pero también, pues no sé, agradecerle mucho a toda, como dicen también, o sea, la gente que me ha apoyado, que nos ha apoyado desde que empezamos, o sea, tenemos, como contaba Anthony, diferentes personas en la industria que nos han apoyado desde el principio, desde hace 5 años, 1 año, lo que sea. Yo creo que he tenido el orgullo de conocer mucha gente que la verdad aprecio mucho esto. Entonces, espero que cuando vean esta historia, o sea, que les guste y que aprendan de cada una de las historias que estamos mostrando. Y pues nada más, que la disfruten, la verdad, y que si se sienten identificados en alguna cuestión de cualquiera de nuestras historias, pues que la usen como ejemplo y para algo bueno.
Muchísimas gracias, Jose, por estar aquí con nosotros. Edgar, any final words you want to share before we go start closing up? And then I'm going to go ahead and go to Anthony afterwards.
Yeah, I'm just, really stoked that, Joe and Alex decided to approach us and slide into our DMs to ask us if we wanted to make a show. It's the best DM I've ever got in my life. But yeah, it's been really beautiful to see, the reaction to the show. And like, more than anything, I think we touched base on it earlier of like, I'm just really happy to see that, we're getting to really highlight the people that make the Taco Mafia so special. Like, you will get to see like, our corn farmer, Hugo Gomez in Oaxaca, and like his mother, Senora Magdalena, like getting to go into their home and like really just understand like a little bit of what makes, Nixta so special and what drives Nixta behind, our corn is 100% that story. And like the fact that we get to highlight them and like give them a little shine, like I love every moment of that. And, I just continue and hope that, other taqueros will continue to be inspired and, we just keep doing great things. And, maybe one day, we'll have this, on Netflix and people all over the world can continue to see this. And we just keep spreading that culture of, tacos and, for the raza and just keep pushing that brown and proud movement forward,
Well, I appreciate that, Edgar. And I did see that episode, and the fact that you were able to go over there and check out the corn and and also get inspiration from all the different places that you ate when you go to the mercado. That was amazing. And it showed too when Beto was trying to find, a good, tacos, right? And he came down to San Antonio and he went to that one taqueria. That was great. I will say though, and this is an open invitation to all of y'all, I definitely want to take y'all to my favorite taqueria over here in San Antonio. It's called El Pastor es mi Señor. Especialmente para ti, Jose. Have y'all been there?
Me and Jose went like 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Okay. Yeah, we went with a couple of our friends from another food truck, Norte, and we all walked out like
geeking out. We were like, "Oh my god, this is Mexico City style pastor."
That guy is a genius.
I'm telling you, those are the best tacos. Tienen un tropo de pastor y uno de sirloin. Oh my god, I go crazy.
El de pastor está increíble.
¿Verdad?
Yeah, the marinade they have on it is.
Okay, Joe, Alex, see, open invite. Y'all got to come down. I'm going to take y'all over there. So
that's an easy yes. Let me know when.
Yeah, and one last point I just heard something. Edgar, was Joe's DM the best DM you've ever received? I don't know if Sam's going to like that, man.
Alex.
I mean, Alex. I don't know, man, because I remember the episode, the love episode.
Dude, I'm so glad you called them out because I was just like, really? Like,
DMs that always were like you'll remember that will change your life. That was one of them. I remember getting that.
Okay.
And I was like, damn,
we
really got to make a TV
that was
show.
one of them, not the best.
I'm just honored to be in the conversation.
Yeah,
It sounded so sick.
one of.
Flattered to be in the same group as Sarah. Like honestly.
Oh my God, Edgar! Thank you so much, Edgar, for being with us today, and thank you for the work that you continuing to do, not just in the culinary world, but also in reaching out to your community. Thank you so much. And the final word, final word, will go to Anthony. Anthony, thank you so much for being with us as well. Why don't you give us one final word and let the audience know why this Taco Mafia documentary, this series, is so important for people to watch, and tell us final words towards that, and also for the rest of the crew.
Okay. First off, Rodrigo, I wanted to say thanks for having us all on. Your questions have been very thought-provoking, and I appreciate your style of interviewing. And there's probably a technical term for what you do, but your style of interviewing is really, really good. So I appreciate your thought-provoking questions, and thanks for having us on. My final word for the audience listening to tune into Taco Mafia is, I'm going to take it back to something I used to tell him when we were first opening. I hope that y'all find inspiration in all of our stories that hopefully will motivate you to follow whatever passion project that you think would make you happy, right? It's not going to be easy, but every problem has a solution. I used to say that to him all the time. We faced a mountain of problems, and we just had to have the mindset like every problem has a solution. It just, we got to put our heads together and figure it out. And one thing that I would say, like, from all of our stories, I hope you take away from is consistency is key. So if you have a goal, as long as you put in the work and you're consistent, it might get boring, it might get mundane, but with consistency, one day you're going to wake up and realize like, oh, I did it. Like, it pays off. No one said it was easy, right? But I hope that what you can take from all of our stories is, as long as you're consistent with a goal and intention, anything is possible, even during a pandemic. So I hope that y'all enjoyed the series, and thank you so much for tuning in and hearing us talk with each other today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that, Anthony, and thank you all for joining us. We have been talking to the Taco Mafia. The Taco Mafia explores the challenges of surviving in a post-pandemic world amongst issues of gentrification, immigration, and sustainability. From our friends at Austin PBS to taco lovers like you, you can catch the Taco Mafia every Thursday for new episodes on Austin PBS or online via the Austin PBS app. Thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate the cast and crew of the Taco Mafia for being here with us. An insightful conversation, dope stories that are being shared. And as I always like to say, so happy that we're finally getting to share things on our terms. So that's so important that we're sharing these stories out. So kudos to y'all for making this happen. I want to just thank everybody that's been listening, that's been sharing, or that is catching this on the FM broadcast or perhaps on our podcast. Feel free to follow us, Nuestra Palabra, on Facebook, Twitter, as well as other social media platforms. My name is Rodrigo Bravo Jr., filling in for our host, Tony Diaz, El Libro Traficante. I want to appreciate everybody that's been listening. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you at a future event or perhaps another broadcast. Outside of that, hope everybody has a great night. I will talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.